Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 3 of the Bills Roundtable, brought to you by Roundtable Sports, real coverage, real fans. The Buffalo Bills just completed their first preseason game against the New York Giants, and I would like to say that there has been several players that we could add a stock up or stock down designation to. That's going to be the episode, and I cannot wait to hear from the panel. Z-Bot, what is going on, my friend, and how was your weekend?
Dan the Man, weekend was good. First preseason game, rather, in the books. A lot to talk about, but things were good. Not as good as yours. I saw you got the Traeger grill like you were telling me, and I saw on Twitter, so very jealous.
Right.
You couldn't have gotten that at a better time, though, by the way. Season
For
about
sure.
a month away, so you're going to be locked and loaded this year.
For sure, man. You know what? Like I was telling you backstage, I am going to attempt a brisket next weekend, see how that plays out. And college football specifically, it's definitely tough for us to have friends over and watch ball, especially in the line of work right that we're in. So
Right.
I'm going to have to reserve it like right for college football only. And maybe I'll be able to go on ahead and throw some pork butts on there, some pulled pork, and some little Southern style barbecue. I'm super excited about it. That's for damn sure. Jake, what up, man? Talk to me.
Well, you know what? Had a great weekend. It was good to be back at Highmark Stadium, feeling that Bills Mafia energy. We're ready to close out this stadium with a bang. The farewell season has begun. Although it's the preseason, we're underway, and we're just happy to have Buffalo Bills football back. I don't know about you, but I'm really excited for this season.
Oh, man, so are we. Kevin, what's up with you, man? How you doing?
Good. Breaking down another time here to talk about this preseason game. But Dan, have you heard about the Traeger reps? Those dudes that sell Traegers?
No. No, what
dude,
about it?
That's a crazy job. Like I heard they have to travel, they have to leave their house on a Friday, and they have to travel to different states and places weekly. It's a crazy job. It's like being in the military in terms of your schedule, obviously.
So I'm envisioning like door-to-door.
Almost.
Like door-to-door. Wow. Okay.
Like I think they go to like
direct to consumer.
Yeah, direct to consumer,
Wow.
and it's a crazy, but commission only. It's like a crazy like job. So you said Traegers. I'm like, love their grills, but I've heard some stories on people that actually promote Traegers. It's crazy.
Of some door-to-door Traeger salesmen.
Basically, yeah. I think they bug you inside of like a Sam's or BJ's or Costco, and like I don't know exactly. They don't go like literal door to door, but it's a crazy position for sure. I know that.
I'll tell you what, man, I would be an absolute sucker. Say that I got approached by a door-to-door Traeger salesman prior to that purchase.
Could you imagine him smoking it in front of you?
Like, all right, say no more.
They just like in the block wherever you live, they just literally just have a tent and they just start making people food. Like I think that would work super well.
Totally.
That's what we. Wow. All right, dude. Look at that. I'm glad that everybody had an awesome weekend. Jake was obviously at the game, but. Like we were talking backstage, it's tough to really draw a conclusion from the team in and of itself. Who cares? Say, for example, we win or lose. Several years during the drought, I'm pretty sure we went back-to-back seasons going undefeated in the preseason. It's largely meaningless. But I do think that certain performances from some of our new additions, whether through free agency / the draft, we were able to get some sort of answers. So I kind of wanted to start off on the defensive side of the football, and I wanted to sort of get y'all's take on the one player that stood out to you in a positive light. And don't worry, we will get to stock down later. But starting off with Z-Bot, right on the defensive side of the football, one player that really made a name for himself that you were excited about.
Well, it's one of the players who made a name for himself this time last year. It's Buffalo Joe, right? Joe Andreessen. I thought right off the bat, we're going to be looking at the guys that are brand new, the guys that are rookies and new faces to this defense overall. But Buffalo Joe still feels like one of those newer faces because we didn't get to see a whole lot of him last year, and we're well aware of his story. So we look out for him. We're looking to see what he brings to the table, and everybody's rooting for him. And I just felt right off the bat in watching that game, his presence was felt. I feel like with the linebackers on this team, and you saw it really throughout the whole defense, there's a reason why Teron Johnson got banged up early in the game. They're going 100 miles an hour. If there's one thing that Sean McDermott gets out of his defensive players, it's 110% every play. Whether it works out or not, these guys are going to battle with their full will every single snap. Buffalo Joe, no exception. I think that's the reason why he ends up making this team last year anyways, because of his grit and his ability to find the football. And I just felt like right off the bat, he was one of those guys that stood out and flashed off the screen with just his ability to kind of show the instincts that aren't coachable, really. He just seems to have an innate ability to find the ball. He finished the game with 5 total tackles, 1 tackle for loss. He was in on a play on Jackson Dart, I believe, that wound up being completed, but he was right in on him. I think Dart shook him off a little bit. It was a nice move. I mean, he played terrific, in my opinion, for his first NFL start, quote unquote. But Buffalo Joe, one of those guys that you'll love seeing do well. We saw this last year. We see it again this year. And you start to wonder with him, when it starts to get more to a point where you're going to see him actually have an impact on this team. And I think he's shown us flashes of the ability to do that, and I thought he did so again on Saturday afternoon.
I'll tell you what, with Buffalo Joe, it really stood out to me when Bobby Babbage said he's no longer a story. He's actually perhaps an LB3 for this team, as Kevin was telling me on my show just before this. He's really standing out, man. He is. Maybe Dorian Williams has something to say about that. We will see. Jake, on the defensive side of the football, give me a player, especially since you were there in person, that really stood out, that's adding fuel to your fire.
Listen, I hate to do this right off the bat, but I have to go right with I have to carry off what Z-Bot said right there, because Joe Andreessen, he stood out from the rest on the defensive side of the football. That tackle for loss, 5 total tackles. He was all over the field, and really, I took this away at training camp too. Like, he's getting a lot of reps, and these preseason reps, these training camp reps, they're so valuable for this team. And we know about the linebacker depth. It's been an issue during the playoffs in the past, specifically that divisional round game at home against the Kansas City Chiefs 2 seasons ago now. So Joe Andreessen, having someone in the building that's familiar with the system going into his second season in the National Football League, I think his stock is only rising right now. And it's been on the rise really for a while now, dating back to training camp. We heard what Bobby Babbage had to say about him earlier, and what he did out there in the preseason opener at home. I think it just solidified that.
Talk to me, Kev. On the defensive side of the football, like, who got you excited?
Gonna have to go with someone who I perceive to be someone that could start on this defense at some point, and maybe sooner than we even imagine if you're looking at all the positions and all the players. It's Jordan Hancock. I think that he has a specific role in this defense. He was drafted specifically to play for Sean McDermott, and but based on Brandon Beane's evaluation, his team's evaluation, he plays everything. And this is a dude that I believe will be starting on this Buffalo Bills team. I predict it could be as early as this year, but we'll see if it's maybe it's next year. But I think he's a guy that could be starting on this roster very shortly, whether it's hopefully not by injury, but I do believe that he's going to earn a spot on this team. He plays nickel, he plays safety, he plays free safety, he's flying around. He's one of those 5th round picks that maybe didn't have a true lock position, was kind of a utility, kind of did a lot of different things in college and for a really good program, obviously. But Jordan Hancock's a dude that I believe starts on this roster. He showed flashes of being in the right zone coverage in week 1 already. Preseason week 1, he has shown the ability to fly on blitzes. Dude, he's playing some minutes this year for the Buffalo Bills as you know, a middle day 3 draft choice. And he's a guy that I do believe that Brandon Beane hit on in this day 3 class that looks mighty good. No flash again, no quarterback there, but it's a mighty good day 3 when you're going to score multiple different players that are going to have jerseys on game day. That's exactly what you need to do on a roster where you're top heavy or perceived to be top heavy with players like Josh Allen and others, and James Cook needing some money now. So you need to hit on dudes like Jordan Hancock in order to afford James Cooks. And it looks like right now that they have, it's a guy that may take a job from somebody, and sooner rather than later. So he's a dude that I thought did everything right on a play-to-play basis. He really looks like he's got it, knowing the NFL. And I think he's a guy that's could be our next Taron Johnson in the mold of that, or someone in the version of a Micah Hyde.
So it's got to be Cam Lewis's spot, right? Because what you just described, in my opinion, is just a better version of Cam Lewis, right? Like somebody that has that versatility, but obviously Hancock just does it a hell of a lot better. Like that sort of Swiss Army knife upset defense. Is he
similar
the
in
one
that, guys? But I think he
potentially
starts, whereas Cam Lewis never was really in that. Cam Lewis is going to still make the roster because he's a huge impact special teamer. and they don't have a ton of them left from this turnover, from this transition that they've had. So in the jackknife role, like, yeah, I think he is in that guys, but I don't believe that. I think they're a little bit different players, and I think that Cam Lewis still makes his roster, Dan. But Jordan Hancock, man, he was picked for a role, and the Bills nailed it on what they were looking for. He's a dude that you didn't need to take in the first round, guys. I'm excited to hear all your opinions, but I think he's a guy I'm looking forward to the most. Had it on day one of preseason.
You know what's great about Jordan Hancock? He turns 22 tomorrow. This is a young guy with a lot of room for growth.
Yeah. No, look, we were looking at this draft class already, and maybe besides one performance, which we will get to later on in the show, I feel like all of the rookies really made a name for themselves, right? Like Deion Walker, I'm sorry, and maybe that's just my fault by looking at him exclusively as a big body guy right behind Daquan Jones that's just going to eat up double teams to allow Ed Oliver or TJ Sanders to eat. He was showing his pass rushing chops. Same thing with TJ Sanders. He was literally seconds away from literally committing a homicide to Jackson Dart prior to that touchdown pass. Right from there. Same thing with Jordan Hancock and even Dorian Strong. Maybe with that one play that was a little bit iffy in coverage, he also made a name for himself out there. I was very encouraged from what we saw from this rookie class. I got to ask y'all's thoughts on Milano, though, because, again, like y'all know that I have been pushing Milano propaganda for the past few weeks. And Kevin typically talks me off of a ledge, but Kev, I got to hear you. All right. Did Milano impress you on Saturday?
I think he's back to a version of his old self. Honestly, he's flying around. He's making plays. He's there. He's doing things that we're looking for from vintage Matt Milano. Like, honestly, it is what you're looking for. On a one-year deal, he has a prove-it deal for himself for this year, not only to the rest of the league if he isn't here in Buffalo, but I think the Bills would perceive to have him long-term if he plays well again this year, and he probably re-ups and stays here. If he's bad, maybe he walks and goes somewhere else like Jordan Poyer did. But ultimately, I'm impressed. I think he's been fine. I think he's been every bit as much of a linebacker two behind Terrell Bernard. And I mean, he has his old speed back, which I was waiting to see. And he's done enough to me to show me that he can work in this defense, and he is exactly what this defense needs at some point. So I was pretty happy with his play, regardless of any of the missed tackles or whatever they're going to score him at on PFF. But he needs to be there and make the play, and the speed's back for Matt Milano.
And so what are your thoughts on that, Z?
Yeah, my thoughts on Matt Milano remain the same. When he's out there and when he's healthy, I think it doesn't get much better. It's just a matter of having him out there and having him healthy. So you see him get reps in on Saturday, and luckily for us, it felt like the Bills got out of Saturday pretty much unscathed. It looked like it was going to be a real grim start with Teron Johnson going down. It just looked bad the way he collided so hard. And, he was sitting there and tried to get up, went back down. Luckily, it was just a stinger. But, yeah, with Matt Milano, I mean, I've been saying it time and time again. When you combine him and Terrell Bernard, I just feel like it's as good of a tandem as you can have. The problem is we have not had that tandem for a full duration of a season. And if we do get that, I just think that this Bills defense does take that 10% step forward, or at least, has the best ability to take that 10% step forward that we talked about last week. Their health combined with the new bodies. And then in addition to the younger faces, but not newer faces that are going to also be contributing as well. I just feel like that's a massive part. If you have Matt Milano out there along with Terrell Bernard, and we talked about the depth at linebacker too, which is nice because we haven't had that, and we've seen that be a real Achilles heel for the Bills at certain points, and in particular the most pivotal points of the year. But so great to see him back out there. So great to see him looking as good as we know he can be, because we know if he does get back to that potential, that's all pro caliber in the middle of the field for this Bills defense.
Man, so I know it's the preseason, and social media was very loud, right? People were very upset about, once again, our third and long defense, all right, rearing its ugly head. And I think we can all agree that we know, right? We are not unleashing the full playbook. It is the preseason. I would be pissed off if either of our coordinators even put 30% of what our true playbook looks like going into the regular season. But going into this game, and so I saw so many favorable matchups, especially going up against one of the worst offensive lines in all of football last year. So I could only assume how bad their second and third string was going to be. I was kind of hoping that we could have saw some signs of improvement, like with not having to have this high level of anxiety when it's 3rd and 12 or 3rd and 15 and just accepting the fact that it was going to be converted. We've talked a lot this offseason that Buffalo seemingly addressed the issues that have plagued this defense in the past. Does this worry you at all that we're going to be seeing the same damn thing in third down defense going into 2025? I'm going to go back to Z-Bot on this one.
What we saw Saturday doesn't worry me because we saw it on Saturday. What worries me is how much we saw it last year and the idea of it coming back this upcoming year. I mean, there was two things that the Bills were not very good at on Saturday that they were not very good at last year in totality on the defensive side of the ball, and that was stopping other teams on third down and stopping the short screen game. The screen game, for some reason, against this team is almost impossible. I don't understand it. They cannot find a way to beat it. I kept saying numerous times last year, I would continue to run a screen every other play until they show you signs of being able to stop it. For whatever reason, that seems to be what busts open this Bills defense more than any other play. So we saw that again on Saturday. The Giants had a couple of screens go for big yardage, including one that went for a first down conversion, I believe, on a 3rd and 14 was it? It was just a dump off to the left side of the field, got all the way up the field. But we're talking about that third down situation. What was it? 1 for 9 on third downs, or excuse me, Giants were 9 for 19. 1 for 9 was the Bills' offense on third down. I'm not concerned about that, obviously. But when we're talking about the Bills' defense trying to take that marginal step forward to narrow the gap and allow this Bills' offense to get this team over the hump, third down is by far the most pivotal down to show that improvement. Oftentimes, and I know you mentioned this last episode, Dan, how much you hate hearing about the bend but don't break mentality surrounding this Bills defense, because it might just be a nice way to excuse the issues that you see, right? And then you get bailed out by an interception or whatever else. Yeah. But the bend but don't break would certainly allow for far less breaking, or at least more room to bend, if you were to get the teams off the field on third down, especially in elongated territory. The one play I go back to time and time again last year, it was the only loss the Bills had suffered down the stretch going into the postseason against the Rams, where Josh Allen could not have played better if you paid him an additional $325 million or whatever it is. And Matt Stafford's lined up on a third down and long, and they converted and ended up going and winning that game. You had him right where you wanted him in a game where it was super high scoring. You just needed to convert defensively on a third down in a pivotal moment to have that game go your way. And it's a microcosm of this defense compared to the offense, where it just feels like you need one more boost from the defensive side of the ball, and it's just oftentimes not there. So Saturday, not concerned about what we saw in terms of who we saw it with, or the overall microscope of the game Saturday. But this is certainly an issue that has plagued the Bills, in particular last season, and it's got to be one of the main things you look out for going into this upcoming year: third down and the short passing game. The one thing I will say, though, the Bills were really solid at stopping the run this past weekend here on Saturday, which was nice to see. The Giants ran it a ton. They really didn't allow them to get anything going, but the pass game was a different story. So one thing, of course, we're going to be looking out for this year, that's the third down area.
And so it goes to show you like how much of Bosa made an impact on that as well. Like he was the one that was making plays right in the A and the B gap when they tried punishing it right at the beginning. It's by shedding his block and actually making a play. If Bosa can stay healthy, like he's going to be an absolute force right in the run defense all across the board. And that is encouraging. Jake, did it piss you off when you saw this team once again give up a third and forever? Talk to me.
Yeah, it was a little bit annoying, obviously. You know, I was baking in that heat there, by the way. But here's the thing. Like, obviously the carryover, seeing the same issues, it's not ideal. But I would rather have this happen in preseason week 1. We have a lot of new faces on the defensive side of the football, like a lot of young, new players, a lot of people that are just getting fit into the system. And this is their first real live game action. So I'd much rather it happen now. And something that I don't think is being touched on nearly enough yet is the quarterbacks that the Bills went up against here. They're not necessarily world beaters, but you had Russell Wilson. You had Jackson Dart, who's a highly touted prospect. You had Tommy DeVito, and then you have there's the other experienced quarterback, Jameis Winston. Yeah, that's it. So
famous Jameis against third strings was crazy.
Famous Jameis. So here's the thing: it's like those are mostly highly experienced quarterbacks and someone who's a highly touted prospect. So it's good iron sharpens iron kind of mentality here. This is good, valuable tape for these guys to learn from. Obviously, it's not ideal to see that carry over into preseason week 1, but the timing of it, I think, is key.
So what do you got on that, Kev? And did that frustrate you even in the slightest?
We talked about it earlier on your channel, where I thought Brian Daboll was running plays for the regular season. The Bills are calling preseason defense. So I couldn't be the least bit concerned when you couldn't, to Zebot's point, in the regular season, if that's working, go to the well. Like, go to the well. Like, I don't think teams do it enough. The Bills have an aggressive defense that are trying to win one-on-one battles, and they're fast. They play with a lot of speed and intensity, and you got to try to get them off kilter. That's what Patrick Mahomes does. They have different plays called to abuse that scenario. Look, the screen shouldn't be called in preseason. Like, it's ridiculous. You don't see one-on-one matchups at all. You can try it, I guess, just to run it once. Like, they ran, I believe it was 5. They ran 8 running back throws. Brian Daboll was trying to win a football game in the third quarter and fourth quarter of that, to face the New York media, to go back and say, look at how good everybody on my team looks. Look at all the depth we have. It was very obvious. I don't like that play call. It's like blitzing multiple corners on the defense to try to get a set to drive up sack numbers in the preseason. I don't like it. I don't think it tells you anything. You can practice it. Brian Daboll knows how to run a screen. Like, he didn't run it here very much, though, remember? So ultimately, like, look, I thought that it isn't always easy to tell. Like, that's not a play you call in the preseason, because you can't evaluate corners. You can't evaluate offensive linemen. You can't evaluate defensive linemen. You can barely evaluate it. Maybe the quarterback executes it. That's great. I'm glad about that. But it hurts the game, because, like, now you're just trying to get in field goal range. You're just trying to get points. And, like, let's see some matchups. So to me, the third and fourth downs, Brian Daboll knew what he was doing. The purpose of any of these are to win the game. So fine. But I thought he put a little bit too much of a precedent being on the hot seat. Whereas the Bills are going on one-on-one reps. They're looking at different things. Like, calling a screen in certain scenarios is like, good. You won. You won the rep. Like, you called the right play, whatever. The Bills were not the Bills had the recognition there, wouldn't have been as bad. And they converted a lot on plays that I like to call regular season plays, when the Bills were literally trying to win one-on-one matchups. They were not looking at a game plan. They were not looking at recognition. They were not looking at, when running back does X, we defend with Y. So some of those things has been in the Bills in the past, and their third down defense has been a problem for a one-year basis. But when we evaluated the third down defense in totality underneath Sean McDermott, especially third and logs, Bills are actually at the top of the league in many categories. They had a particularly horrible time at it last year. It happens. Just like, we got to talk about regressing the turnovers. Well, we're going to progress the third down defense, because we're not going to just regress the turnovers without saying, well, what else could happen here? I think we're going to progress the Bills to third down defense to being better. Especially, we're not going to just regress something they're good at and just say, oh, that's not going to happen anymore, but you're still going to be bad on third down. Like, we got to have some give and take to evaluate this properly. So Dan, not worried at all. And Brian Daboll is trying to get out ahead of this early on in a good division to deal with some of the critics of the New York media.
He's trying to get some positive press, right? Yeah, why not? Yeah, why not for Dave?
Hard to evaluate, though, on third down when you're running certain screens that, look, these dudes in there are trying to make teams. Like, they're not told to look for the screen in certain scenarios. Like, it is what it is.
Yeah. His job's on the line, and he's trying to do whatever he can to stand out. Folks, let's transition over into stock down players on the defensive side of the football. Again, it's still early, and the 53-man roster does not need to be finalized until right before week 1. So I'm curious to hear you guys. I'm curious to see if anybody has the exact same player as myself. But right before we do that, guys, 69 of you are currently watching live. A lot of you ended up coming over from my live stream. All I ask is, say, for example, that you're vibing with this show. Please do us a favor and hit that thumbs up sign. It helps propel this show out to the YouTube algorithm. We had over 1,000 replays on the first episode, which was great for the first ever episode. But let's build up this live chat community in which that we love to build over here. More Bills fans in the live chat is indeed a good thing. And by the way, say, for example, that you would like to call into every single Roundtable show. That is Bills Roundtable. That is Fourth and Forever. That's AFC's Roundtable. Whatever you watch on the Roundtable Sports Network. If, for example, you sign up for our Patreon premium membership, you will have the ability to call in to this show, ask us a question / maybe get something off of your chest. That link is pinned at the top of the chat. I highly recommend you check that out if you are interested. All right, let's talk about a player that we would consider to be a stock down candidate. Let's start off with Jake on this one. Jake, somebody on the defense that was a massive disappointment in your eyes.
Well, for me, I'm going right to the rookie class, defensive line. Landon Jackson. This is someone who, obviously, you know what, we were expecting big things from him in this game, and we didn't really see anything. I felt that he wasn't, like, you look at the stat sheet and his name's not even there, which that's not really a good sign. Obviously, you're looking for something more from a young defensive end, and we know that he was dealing with injuries, some sort of injury in training camp, and this as his first audition for the Buffalo Bills, kind of getting bullied a little bit. It's not ideal. It's not an ideal start for the young rookie at all.
So this is the one rep, because I feel like when people bring up Landon Jackson, it's everyone that's just so upset that he ruined the would-be interception for Jordan Hancock. But this is the specific rep that really like made me be like, okay, like this dude's ceiling is AJ Epinesa. His ceiling is AJ Epinesa. Let's not even talk about his floor here. But so here's our boy. Check it out.
And here at this early point of this.
Here he is. Bang. Right there. We see that? Yeah, let's go ahead and do it again. One more time for the people. And some people might say, oh, Dan, we saw Ray Davis slipping all over the place. That is not what you want to see right out of a defensive end that we desperately need to perform well going into the season. Z-Bot, who is your one player? And say that you have anything to say about Landon Jackson, please let us know.
Well, it wasn't just that he fell right there. It was really slow getting up off the snap, which I think kind of led to that too, right? That's what you don't want to see. When in the opposite, you're looking at Deion Walker, who, I mean, he's a literal skyscraper, 6'7", 315 pounds. That guy was moving as fast as anybody out there. So on that particular rep, that's what stands out to me the most is getting off the snap. I mean, if we're talking about an arrow down for this particular game on the defensive side of the ball, I think there's one play that you look at that you really remember the most. It's that Jackson Dart touchdown at the near pylon all the way down the left side of the field there. And it just felt like on that particular play, Dane Jackson kind of got torched by little Jordan Humphrey on that play. And I mean, it was obviously a situation where Jackson Dart's feeling himself. He's trying to feel out the overall course of a football game, and to allow that to kind of happen when it did, it just felt like it was a little worse than just a standard preseason moment, because Dane Jackson, obviously a vet on this team and going to be someone that's going to be relied upon in that cornerback room in terms of depth. And we don't know, obviously, what the situation is going to be with Maxwell Harrison. We've seen plenty of injuries on this Bills defensive side of the ball. So somebody you might be relying on at some point. And when we're talking about early in the second quarter here, to get beat like that and allow Jackson Dart to hit that throw, Giants fans are going to be talking about that all week long, and Dane Jackson, of course, is going to be on the wrong end of that. Now, give Dart credit. That's a hell of a throw. I mean, it really is an absolute dot. Like I said earlier, I was impressed with what I saw from Jackson Dart, and I think he's been highly underrated coming into this Giants team. Everybody wants to talk about Russell Wilson, but I think Dart had a terrific career at Ole Miss, and I think that the Giants have some potential here with Dart. But to have allowed that to get as open as it was, credit to Dart for hitting him, but that's not what you expect out of a veteran like Dane Jackson there, and I think that that's the big play you take away from this game, and unfortunately, he was on the wrong end of it.
Dane Jackson. And so a lot of people were upset with Damar Hamlin not giving him anywhere close near rate of assistance. But I can tell you, I'm almost convinced that Damar thought that TJ Sanders had Dart for a sack. I could almost guarantee you that's probably why it was, but it was not a good look regardless. Kevin, stock down candidate for the Buffalo Bills defense.
Going Damar Hamlin. Look, you expect more from a safety on that play. I'm going to give Landon Jackson like a preseason game pass. He's young. Wasn't his best performance, wasn't very good at all, but I want to see more from him in at least preseason games, let alone the regular season. I think as a rotational piece, he'll be fine. But I don't love your AJ Epinesa comparison because I think he's a little bit more physically gifted than AJ Epinesa, and wasn't a good game though. So hopefully we get that rectified. But when it comes to that play that Z-Bot referenced, I don't know, Dane. I mean, you can make an argument Dane Jackson has inside leverage. He's on his inside hip. He's doing what he, and this is coming from someone that doesn't like Dane Jackson, but he's doing what he needs to do. He's expecting help over the top. I believe in that defense. Like, I haven't been able to break it down yet. I do believe it's some form of cover two, a different version of where DeMar Hamlin's supposed. We saw an interception on this exact play by Micah Hyde in the playoffs, right? So we expect, I didn't say he needs to go and jump over everybody and in one hand pick it in the end zone. Like, it's not what I'm asking for here. I am looking for an effort. So I don't know. Once again, we were talking about this earlier on Dan's channel. I don't know if the Bills are letting them island play go. They're like trying to see coverage, what they're doing on this specific play. Even DeMar Hamlin, who I'm giving down arrow to, like, I have Jordan Hancock above him. I have pretty much anybody that plays safety above DeMar Hamlin at this point. He should be further along. He needs to go and make a play on that ball unless he was told not to. I don't know why that would be, but it was such a weird play to where he's only like staring at the middle of the field where there's nothing, and you already have a linebacker in zone coverage, and he's maybe in a quarters, but he's literally jogging toward the play. I don't understand what happened there. It's an awful play. Like, Jackson Dart had one read on that play. Believe it or not, it was there because of the great pressure by Sanders. There was no other read he would have had on that play. I don't know what DeMar Hamlin's looking for unless he was told, let Dane live on this one-on-one or something. I don't really understand what was told, but Dane Jackson also seems to always get beat and victimized. Back to the Thanksgiving Day game I can think of against Detroit. So I just don't think he's a very good player. But DeMar Hamlin, who is going to make the team, in my opinion, also looked terrible. He's good in run support. He provides nothing for the team in coverage, and I'm playing Jordan Hancock over him day one. For some reason, my two starting safeties aren't ready to go. So that's where I'm at with this scenario. But the difference is I think Dane Jackson gets cut. So congratulations for Jackson Dart for maybe finally getting this guy cut. But I unless Harrison's out for longer than we think, I just do not believe Dane Jackson made this roster, will make this roster, and is destined for the practice squad vet role that will sit on the practice squad most likely. So that's where I'm at with him. But I think it's a decent throw. I don't think it's crazy. He had someone in his face, but this is the argument for everybody to remember. Everyone's like, D lineman, D lineman, D lineman, D lineman. The D lineman won and got there in record speed. You still need coverage, and even in 2.5 second increment. Like, the D line won. So everybody that wants D line, this is always a counter to it. You need the coverage there, like Philadelphia had in the playoffs, because even with the interior pass rush that the Bills won, and hopefully Sanders does this in meaningful games, because that's a huge win, they still beat the play because you need the coverage there. So it's a huge thing to remember for this team's success, is that play, because we've all wanted interior pressure against Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes makes the same throw and better in the playoffs. So we have to remember we need the coverage there. And to Z-Bot's point, Dane Jackson is an absolute liability, but DeMar Hamlin cannot be playing, in my opinion, starters minutes.
Very, very interesting, folks. You know what? Like, we ended up getting a taste of our defense. And then for the most part, I do think that we got some answers from the offensive side of the football. Again, we get pointed back to this James Cook saga, which is very weird, right? Like, he suits up, right? He's running with 11 on 11s. And we were like, oh, my God, he's going to play, man. Like, maybe he decided, he's ready to play ball. Who knows? But nope. Again, that was yet another show. He is not out there. Again,
it would have been 10 times weirder, by the way, if he did play. If he had
I
played,
know.
then I just wouldn't even know what to say at this point. I really wouldn't.
And then tomorrow we hear that he's now participating in joint practice with the Chicago Bears. Be like, looks like James Cook is literally just playing games, but, like, not regular.
We got to talk, though. When does it get to the point when, because I can't get any clarification on this. If you willingly do not participate, do the Bills have the right to then start levying fines on him if he is acting? Because from what I can tell, Kevin, you're shaking your head. That's what I'm getting. My impression is yes. Just because you're showing up doesn't mean you are impervious to these fines. And based on the demeanor from Sean McDermott, we can tell he is not happy right now. He is not pleased with the situation. I'm wondering, as we see Cook playing what I would deem to be hardball right now, when do we start to see some hardball being reciprocated here by the Bills? Because this is an awfully confusing situation, and one that I just don't quite understand, because this season kicks off in less than a month, and there is just no way in my mind that he's not out there playing week one. And now he's only doing himself a disservice because if he's not on the field, he's not getting reps underneath of him, heightens an injury concern, heightens the inability to be prepared alongside the rest of the guys. Is he all in on this or not? Because warming up and then refusing to play, I just don't quite get. It seems like everything is a half foot in, half foot out type approach here. And I'm completely confused about what the end game is here for James Cook.
Some comments panel. What do you got? Look at this. There's our guy right there, man. Look. Say pay me my money.
I mean, Z-Bot said it well in this scenario. Like, I don't understand. I think fines can come at any point. I believe I've read some stuff about the CBA. They can, I mean, there's nothing in there that says you can fine someone. I mean, I guess you could fight it with the PA and you could do your course of action, I guess, but the Bills can fine at any point. Like, they can decide, like, at any point we want to start fining you. The in and out thing's weird. I don't know at what point the Bills have total carte blanche to fine if he's I don't know when it starts to get weird. So that's maybe why James is doing it this way. Like, at some point, I think he could probably argue, I'm there, you're letting me not practice. I think the Bills would have to request that he doesn't show up then or something. I don't know the exact protocol of, like, how the fines would have to go, but they can at any point. And I mean, they're getting to that point, and I think that Sean said this in his uncomfortably in his post-game interview, because Brandon Beane wasn't there, basically on the team side. Like, look, I wanted him to play, was expecting him to play. He didn't. People need to start being ready next week. And that was to James Cook. That wasn't just to Terrell Bernard or whomever we're going to talk about here. That was to James Cook. So ultimately, I mean, he could even maybe some guys down the road, maybe Curtis Samuel a little bit, but that was really to James Cook. Like, you have to play right now. We need you to be ready for a playoff/championship run. I mean, ultimately, I think he's getting some bad advice. I mean, that's what most people are talking about right now. I don't know, like, where he's going with what he thinks he's worth, but look, he's never going to be worth more, right? So maybe we would all be doing the same thing with his touchdowns. With all that being said, you have to sum it up and say he is worth what he's worth. And maybe the second he takes a snap week one, his price keeps going down. There is a world, maybe it goes up. I mean, in a world where you're rushing for 120 a game or something and you do match that production, it goes up. But I don't know that we live in that world, and I don't anticipate us being in that world. And he's hurting himself to be in that world if he's not going to play. So at some point, the fines got to come out. They need to be levied. I think the Bills are kind of saying, look, negotiate in good faith and we'll keep the fines away, maybe, or something along those lines. But maybe they'll feel like that line will be crossed very shortly. And it could be as soon as the Chicago Bears training week. In my opinion, but maybe I took it as a sign that they were closer, especially when McDermott commented on it. I took it as a sign that, and I've been pretty negative on the scenario, like trade him level. But I think that maybe they're closer than I think with the deal. And we're not really hearing any leaks or sources or anything from anybody right now, but I think it's possible that he's a little bit closer than even I thought. And maybe to that point right here by Buff Dad, that maybe there is a deal somewhat coming at some point soon. Could make sense, but I don't blame him for sitting out of these trainings or these weeks. People get hurt in these. So I don't totally mind Bill sitting a lot of players, to be honest, and especially James going after a contract. So I can't blame him for that. How he's handled the last week was weird, but not playing in this training, I can't totally knock, but it is getting super weird of a scenario for both sides. And Sean McDermott's kind of in the middle because he loves James. And he's not sure what to say or do. So he's probably a little bit frustrated in the totality of what's going on.
So I had Zach Hiller on the show a couple of weeks ago, and we DM back and forth, but he just sent me an article today from X, from Pro Football Talk, that was titled "Bills Want to Win a Super Bowl. Running back James Cook deserves a significant contract. It's time for the second thing to happen." So that's the first thing that has to happen.
Yeah,
and
so I listened to Florio.
He forwarded over there. Yeah, he just
I listened to Florio and Sims. They talked about this for 15 minutes today. And the one thing, and I love Florio and Sims, by the way. So this is no knock at them. I just didn't quite understand the angle they were taking on this, where they were basically saying that Brandon Beane should disregard the Kyron Williams contract because it was more team friendly. And if he was really all in, then they should be looking at more of a fair deal for James Cook. And I just couldn't for the life of me understand why you would disregard the Kyron Williams contract. They are in the same exact year going into this year with very similar production. How could you possibly disregard that contract? And then the counterpoint was that it should be more towards a Jonathan Taylor type contract. But my whole idea on that has always been the Indianapolis Colts offense is Jonathan Taylor. James Cook is not the Bills offense. So you have to pay Jonathan Taylor top of the market money, because if you do not have Jonathan Taylor, then you might not score 14 points per game if you're the Indianapolis Colts. So the Bills are in a way different situation. And for this idea behind disregarding Kyren Williams to be brought to the table when it's the most recent contract and their similarities far outweigh their differences, I just, for the life of me, could not understand why that was a point there.
Still. And so what about you, Jake? Do you have any comments on the James Cook saga and just going into chapter 9?
I mean, there's a lot that can be said about this. It's creating a real divide in the fan base. I had the opportunity to ask some fans about their thoughts on it, and there's no in between. It's either pay the man or trade him, basically. And it's two really extreme things, and you got to imagine that the front office has to be feeling the pressure. James Cook, you saw him with the sunglasses. He looks unfazed out there, but obviously he's doing this because he wants to get paid. He's trying to secure that bag, some long-term security. This is probably his one chance at getting that big-time payday. So from his perspective, you understand it, but you also understand the perspective of the Bills front office. It's a really, really tricky spot. And myself, I'm one that feels that, I don't want to disregard the Kyren Williams contract, because that is a great comparable contract, someone who has similar production. But if it's $1 to $2 million that we're really talking about here, we're really closing in on the season. And the Bills, they are really trying to go for that Super Bowl. Josh Allen, he's not getting any younger. I want to maximize that window. And if we're talking $1 to $2 million, I think maybe that we should be locking it up. But $15 million per year, that's a steep price to pay.
Steep indeed. But you know what? It's not all about James Cook, because we did see some of our newly acquired additions on the Buffalo Bills offense perform. Starters very sparingly, obviously, and then a lot of guys that are fighting for a roster spot. So based off of time, because I do have a college football show that starts in about 15 minutes that I am also a part of, let's go ahead and go around the table and talk to me about the one player that stood out to you, stock up, and one stock down, starting off with Z-Bot. What do you got?
Well, I know it's the easy answer here, but it's a guy that I think everybody's rooting for. And when you had some new names brought into the wide receiver room, it was assumed probably that Tyrell Shavers was not going to make the cut. But he has done an exceptional job throughout the training camp period here, making his name known. I know it was a name tossed around this time last year, especially with the loss of Diggs and Davis, and everybody was trying to piece together what was going to happen here, and it didn't really end up working out for Shavers. But you come into this year again, having a really solid training camp period here. You factor this in with what, Kevin had alluded to last week with Elijah Moore not being super high on him, and it just kind of seemed like he's disappeared a little bit over the last couple of weeks. Curtis Samuel, you're not hearing a whole lot about him either. And then here's Tyrell Shavers, who's just had a really solid last couple of weeks, and then you see him go out in this training or in this preseason game here with the biggest play of the day for the Bills, a 58-yard catch. So, that's one guy that I look at. You're always looking for the feel-good, happy stories, guys you're rooting for. And also you want to parlay that with guys that you think can be productive. I think we're going to get both of that here with Shavers. It's really aiming more towards him making this team this year, looking like he could be a contributor. So that's one guy on the offensive side of the ball that I think it would be hard to not give an arrow up to, not only for Saturday, but for the last couple of weeks here, really the last month or so here, kind of capping it off on Saturday and really bringing to the forefront what he's been for the Bills the last couple of weeks, really throughout the offseason here. And with the Bills' offensive weaponry unit kind of always being a what-if type question the last couple of years here, obviously people are expecting a lot out of Josh Palmer, and he'll get another arrow up from me, by the way. I was real thrilled with what I saw in a really brief period for him early on in this game. You can just tell that he's got a knack for getting open. And, Mitch Trubisky was under fire, it felt like, real early on in this game. And he was able to find Josh Palmer a couple of times. I'm really excited for him. And I guess that can lead to my arrow down. And it was this offensive line collectively. I mean, the offensive line for the Bills has been a strong suit for them the last couple of years. This is why James Cook's even in position to be asking for a contract of the magnitude in which he's looking for, why Josh Allen was the least sacked quarterback last year, why the turnovers were down so substantially. Don't want to look too much into it because it is preseason, and I can go back to the last 2 years and tell you that this offensive line for the Bills has been one of their biggest assets, much less a concern like it had been in years past. But Saturday was not good right out the gate. It just felt like Mitch Trubisky was under fire. It felt like everybody really was. But early on in that starting period where you had a really good Giants defensive front, I mean, don't get it wrong. Everyone's expecting nothing from the Giants this year, but that defense could be scary, interesting. They're better than they're given credit for. Thought the offensive line for the Bills really struggled in that first quarter trying to protect the quarterback.
So what you got on that, Jake? Talk to me. One stock up, one stock down.
Biggest stock up player on the offense, and this is someone who also can be a valuable special teams contributor. Laviska Shenault. He had 2 returns for 62 yards, made some room out there on the kick return, and that's something that's very important, especially for someone who's, if he's going to be on the team, he's going to be really deeper down in the depth chart on the wide receiver room. So having that Swiss Army knife potential, that's something that's really valuable for someone who's trying to crack this roster. 2 returns, 62 yards. He also hauled in a reception for 17 yards. And then he brought in a 2-point conversion after, which kind of just shows that he's available in the red zone if you need him. So that's something that I value, all of those abilities. And collectively, that makes me put him as a stock up. Stock down, I'm going to go with someone who's probably on the outside looking in already. But quarterback Shane Buechele, sure, he went 10 of 12. That's decent numbers. But inside the red zone, I thought he wasn't very efficient. And when you saw what Mike White did out there, I was really impressed by that.
And so what you got on that, Kevin?
I have to go. There's some good options there and good choices by those two. But I really think that like stock up, you really look at who did the most in this one-on-one performance to possibly be an efficient member of this roster. I'm going Palmer. Maybe it was because I didn't believe that we talked about here, even on our couple first editions. Like, I don't know how much he was going to affect this game, like affect this team. We've had some busts in the past with Hardy and others who we had high hopes for, and Palmer's true route runner. Maybe he just didn't have it on the right level with his Chargers team, because he has good separation scores. Why doesn't he get the ball? It's been a weird kind of conundrum, in my opinion, for me, having under 600 yards. What did we see that we paid him basically like a receiver 2? I do believe he'll be a receiver 2 for this team. Played really well. And even with the 2s, quarterbacks, and a couple other players, I think he's going to be a really good wide receiver 2 for the Bills. So that's a huge heads up for me, because I wasn't sure. I wasn't bought in when he got the contract. So very interested to see that. I do believe he may be a receiver 2 for this roster, one that we've been missing for many years. So I'm going to give it to Palmer. And I mean, arrow down, like if you look at who did the most, in my opinion, that hurt themselves and really hurt their positioning on this roster. And you could go a couple places with it. You could really look at it from a few different perspectives. But I was really excited to see the different versions of the secondary. And I left a little bit disappointed with some members of the Bills secondary. And I just don't know how you can watch that game and think that, we talked about Dane Jackson. Like, it's got to go Dane Jackson. He's got to be better than that. He's a vet on this roster, and he's a true member that should not make this team. So that's where I'm going to stand on this. Like, I don't want him on the team. I don't think he provides anything over than a Corey Couch or anybody else who you could put on this an Ingram. I just don't think he provides anything on this roster at all. So cut him, the arrow down. What he needed to do was make a play to prove, like, dude, I'm just as good as anybody else. I'm a 5th corner. So roster me. I just don't think he can make this team, guys. I just have no interest in Dane Jackson being on this roster. I'd take pretty much any other developmental corner to make this team, and even swap him out if you have to throughout the year. But Dane Jackson cannot be on this week 1 roster.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dane Jackson, there you have it. You are not on this Buffalo Bills Super Bowl run team. I can promise you that. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of the 3rd episode of Bills Roundtable. We are live Monday and Thursday at 5 p.m. EST, breaking down everything that happens with this team. On Thursday, I would imagine we'll probably end up having yet another update to the James Cook saga. We'll probably have some questions leading up into joint practice as well with the Chicago Bears, as well as a game to preview. We just ask that if you are enjoying the show, please hit that thumbs up sign, tell a friend, subscribe, and turn on bell notifications so you never miss an episode. Z-Bot, what do you have to say to the audience before we let them go?
Thanks again for tuning in. Real excited to be building this up. We already got 3 under our belt here. We're getting the rust off, right? Shaking off the dust, getting ready for the regular season, and we appreciate everyone who's along on the ride. Thanks again for tuning in. See you Thursday, where we'll recap, I'm sure, a little bit of Hard Knocks on again for episode 2 tomorrow. I know I personally loved it because it was just like a love letter to the Bills and Bills Mafia. I think everyone outside of the Bills fan base was a little bit bored. So we'll see tomorrow if we get a little bit more of that James Cook controversy baked into there. We'll also get to see some of that under the hood type look of what we saw on Saturday, which I'm looking forward to. So see you Thursday, and thanks again for tuning in.
So what you got, Jake?
It was just great. It was great to be here today discussing the Buffalo Bills. It's the passion. It's what we love to do. And it was great to be back at Highmark Stadium on Saturday with Bills Mafia. There's nowhere else I'd rather be. In the words of Josh Allen, be good, do good, God bless, and go Bills.
What you got, Kev?
Can't wait to recap. It was probably a puff piece for many people to watch that Hard Knocks, but I do believe that this is the best team they've covered, though. So there's not much there to what people find dramatic and interesting. The Bills probably don't even have that interesting of cuts, to be honest. Like literally, I don't know. So, but we'll see what happens. The James Cook stuff is probably the most interesting. And is it a little bit filtered for TV? Like, could this all go hand in hand? It certainly seems weird the way this is all transpiring for good TV. So I am interested to see. Thumbs down, by the way, on the James Cook side, just in general. Just thumbs down on the James Cook saga. I don't care whose fault it is. Just thumbs down on it. I just don't like the way it's transpiring. And thumbs down to Curtis Samuel. That's what I'm going to leave you, Liz. Trade Curtis Samuel. Save the cap space.
It's his birthday.
Trade Curtis Samuel. Save the cap space. Folks, thank you so much. Trade Curtis Samuel on his birthday. And so according to Kev, tomorrow. Trade him tomorrow. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys, and we will see you on Thursday. Deuce.
Go Bills.